Welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday. My guest today is Susan Black, and we are going to be talking about something I'm actually really excited about. So a little bit of background. I ran into her at CES. We'd met before. One of the things she told me is that she uses AI to run her entire business. And I was completely enthralled, excited about that. And so that's going to be the focus of this conversation. But before we get started, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. Susan, welcome. Let's start with, before we get into AI and running your business, let's start with talking a little bit about who you are and what your business is.
Well, thanks, Steve. I am so excited to be here because next to talking about Wowzitude, which I'll tell you about in just a second, my second favorite thing to talk about is AI. So we're going to have a great conversation. But Wowzitude, we do live streaming travel in 200 destinations all over the world, interactively, of course. So we've got local guides under contract everywhere, and we do it twice weekly for groups up to 8,000 people. We're able to do it at scale. And you're absolutely right when you said that I run my entire business using AI. So it is a passion of mine, and every day I'm learning something new.
Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of backstory. I introduced this by saying that we touched base at CES, and you were telling me this, but I showed you my favorite trick, right? And that is to use AI to capture all the contact information and your tasks to do when you meet people there. And so you tried it out, right?
Well, not only have I tried it out, but you may not have known this, but back in the days when I was, I come from the travel industry, and we had a very robust travel conference called TravelCom. And so I've been running trade shows for a long, long time. This was one hack that I had never thought of. And so not only have I tried it, I have now told hundreds of people, giving you credit, Steve, that this is the very best way to work a trade show. And I'm so excited. And quite frankly, everybody on my team, especially all the biz dev people, are kissing me because I would normally come home with reams and reams of cards or notes on napkins and just all sorts of things. And then it would be weeks until I would get the information to them. But with your hack, with what you told me with AI, I was doing it every night, and they were wondering, what pixie dust had come across my way, because this was really a game changer.
Yeah, so it's very exciting. I'm going to give you a little bit of tease. I'm actually working on recording a short course on this that we'll make available. I'm hoping by the end of the week it'll be out. But the basics are that I will take a picture of somebody's business card or a badge at a trade show, or it really could be just about anything. And then I will dictate some additional notes. One of your additional hacks was actually the next step in there. So I dictate all of that in. And then what the AI tool will do is actually put that into a table format that you can download, which means you can load that into your email program. And then the last thing I did is that I took that task comments stuff, I fed it back into AI, and I said, create a draft email to each one of these people based on the comments that I put in there. And so I ended up with a spreadsheet that had all the contact information, the notes that I dictated in, plus a draft email. And then I used a tool called GMass that does a mail merge, and I had it take and create draft emails that I went into, customized, and sent out. And coming out of CES, I think I had almost 50 contacts. And so it's even doing all that. It still took me a couple of days, but I probably would have just given up and not gotten them all done.
Yeah, I can feel that. I had really challenges during follow-up before this. As I said, it's a game changer. I added one more hack to your hack. You know, it's like we keep
Good.
together. So what I did was I in speaking to ChatGPT or Claude or whoever I was in the mood to talk to that day with this hack, because I went back and forth between the two. I said, you know what? You know what Wowzitude does. You know what we do, what we're looking for, and who we can benefit. So the companies that I'm speaking with, that person I'm speaking with, I'm speaking to Steve Moran, see what his company does. I may not know everything. As a matter of fact, I just met them. A lot of people I didn't know. See what they do and figure out a way that you think we can work together and put that in the email. So my customized emails in follow-up, of course, I would look at it first to see if it was reasonable. And sometimes I'd say, that's interesting. Go over to the website, check it out, make sure there's no hallucinations, and there weren't. But I would then be able to say, so by the way, we met briefly, and here's something I'd like to talk about, one sentence or two. And wouldn't you know, Steve, I got almost twice as many responses back than I normally would using this new technique that you brought to my attention.
That is fantastic. Okay, so first off, before we get to how you use your business, let's talk about AI platforms. ChatGPT, OpenAI, sort of the big one everybody knows about. Maybe you know about DeepSeek because of all the stuff. What's your favorite? What are your thoughts on various platforms?
So I tend to trade off a bunch of times. We were talking about this before. Sometimes I like ChatGPT, and there's times I'll tell you when I like it the most. There's a custom GPT, which is under Explore GPTs, and that, if ChatGPT is the teacher, think of this as the professor. This is the specialist. And everything from, believe it or not, even grant writing, right? So different things that have specialty. When I said that I run my business doing this, I wasn't kidding. I'm now able to lower my legal fees because I'm able to use a custom GPT on ChatGPT. I'm not dumb enough to have that substitute a lawyer, but I'm able to do a lot of the groundwork, save myself a lot of billable time and a lot of billable hours. As a small business, that's a big deal. Give the drafts over to my lawyer, the agreements that we have for our JVs and different business prospects. And it takes a lot less time, billable hours on their end. So that's the custom GPT format that I like. However, when it comes to writing proposals or just writing different things as a writer, as it were, as a collaborator, really, a collaborator when I'm doing proposals, my favorite is Claude. So I actually have the paid version on both of them. It's $20 a month each, not a big investment.
No.
And the output that I get from each of those is amazing. Now I use, I'm not going to get into all the details, but I use about 26 other AI programs for different things, everything from Canva to, Perplexity to Beautiful AI for, so there's a whole host of them, and each one is a specialist, and it's a joy to figure out how each one works.
So, what about DeepSeek, Copilot, or Gemini?
So Copilot and Gemini, I mean, they'll just crop up when you're doing a search anyway, because it's Microsoft, it's Google. So, they're perfecting it. I take a look at that, but I'm not always using it. It's good information when I'm doing a search, but it's a little too broad for me. I'd rather the specialists. And I don't know about you, but I talk to my GPT, and that's the other thing. I have all of these on an app on my phone, especially when you're at a trade show, Steve, as you and I were. It is fantastic to just sit there, and if you can use Siri, if you can talk to your phone, you can talk to that. So oftentimes when I'm with Copilot or some of the others, I'm on my laptop, I'm on my desktop, so it's not as conducive to using it as I do the apps, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or some of the others. So I tend to use those more often. People like, But I don't think it's still as robust as the uses that I'm using currently. And maybe it's just a learning curve. But I'm on ChatGPT and Claude, I would say probably between 4 and 6 hours a day, um, uh, using it for just about everything. The thing I don't use it for is just to have like an editor rewriting it. It's kind of like, that's very 101. I'm really using it more as a collaboration tool. And that's where the magic comes in. And my comfort level is there. Maybe I'll have a comfort level at some point with DeepSeek, but right now it's still with ChatGPT and Claude.
Okay, so let's help me understand a little better how you're actually using it day to day. So you get up in the morning and tell me about how you start your day with AI.
Well, first of all, I like to have my news, curated for me. Now, yes, we all used to go into search, or we would have Google, kind of send us our alerts. But how great is it when you can really craft and you can schedule, because you can, of course, you can schedule just the type of very exact news about specific clients or different trends or different things in a very encapsulated way that you can actually then use, because you can see something. And if I see something, maybe that's a good thing to share on LinkedIn, on one of the social media chats. Maybe it's something I want to email someone. So it's not just kind of reading the news and getting my edification. It's what I would call actionable news. Actionable news, either because I can tie it in with something that we're doing for business. And by the way, I don't just use AI for my business life. I use it personally as well. It helps me craft some, shall we say, delicate text messages, particularly to my adult children. But it helps me craft different things so that I have a comfort level. I can get through it quickly, and it gets right to the point of what I'm looking to do. Now, it's not that simple. You really have to go into a conversation with that. And that's a little, shall we say, not so natural for most people. But after a while, you get the hang of it. But you start talking, especially to the apps, the way you would a person. And believe me, the type of things it gives back to you is amazing. Most importantly, it needs to understand context. The more context you give it, the more you explain, the more you say, this is what I need you to help me figure out with, the better the output.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a use case that I'm trying to figure out. So I am, and Jada, who's producing behind the screen scenes, is going to nod her head at this so much. So I'm like this fountain of ideas. And it comes from news, it comes from stuff I'm reading, sometimes just stuff I hear, podcasts, and those kinds of things. And so I have this Google Doc that's titled Ideas. And when something comes up, I open the Google Doc and I either type something in or I dictate it. And then once in a while I go back in and look at it. And I've got right now, the document's got about 60, 65 things. I've inflicted a couple of little pieces of it on my team, but this is the first time they've even been hearing about this document. And I can see terror in Jada's eyes of, oh, what are we going to do with this? Anyway, a couple things that I'm still trying to figure out is they fall into buckets. So one bucket is, articles I need to write. Another bucket is emails I need to make. Another one are just leadership ideas that I want to use someplace, but I don't know where. And the biggest thing that I want to do is I want to have just a thing where I can say, okay, put into my ideas file, and it'll do that. And then I can say, well, write me an email, and it will actually do it in Gmail. Can I do that?
Absolutely. That's what I do.
Well, teach me how.
Oh my God, it's so much fun. I mean, it's so great. It's what you've just described. And by the way, we're obviously separated, birth somewhere. I also inflict this on my team as well. Except in my case, it's called shower ideas. So, it's I take a lot of showers apparently because I've got a lot of ideas on there. But and by the way, that's what makes it also useful, to have this right by right by my shower when I get out, because I've got ideas, and that's when I'm really not only dictating into it, but it's helping really organize it as well. So can you do it? Yes, you can. Not only that, Steve, you can actually schedule it for different times and I mean, it's incredible what's now going on. It is agent AI. It's an agent now. We're now in the agentic stage. We've passed through the earlier stage. And by going into this agentic stage, it is like literally having a full-time, full service, 3 o'clock in the morning agent who's there to schedule things for you, to put things together. And no, nobody wants to get bothered at 3 o'clock in the morning, but you could say, you know what, when everybody wakes up at 6 o'clock, can you get this out? Sure. So now it has all the functionality of scheduling, understanding, asking for explanations and clarifications back, because sometimes I say things that don't make any sense. And then it can also make recommendations. So it is very active that way. But what makes agentive AI so exciting is that it is proactive. It knows me, it knows my business, it knows how I function. So it's going to proactively now, and it does, ask me, we talked about this before. You have an opportunity here. Would you like me to research and see if there's a big connection over there? Yes, it hadn't occurred to me. Thank you, Claude. So all of this agentic AI is now coming into place where as it learns, right? These are large learning machines, LLMs. It's learning about our businesses, our styles, what we like to do, how we connect things. It's now making proactively recommendations, and that is the game changer.
Okay, so I'm gonna when I get off here, I want to go to my Claude and I want to go send a email to Susan saying it was so great to have you on. How else can I be helpful to you? How do I make that so that, I know that if I just dictate that, it'll give me this text string. How do I make it actually go into my Gmail?
Well, there's we could get into all the tactical things.
Yeah, I want to get into some of this tactical stuff. I actually want to dig a little deeper into this.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just answer that question too. So what we're doing right now, although we're doing a live stream, also many of us go to Zoom and we record it. A great way to do that and to get this type of, shall we say, context again, as I said, is use another AI, whether it's Otter AI or some other one that then will record the actual conversation that we're having, right? It'll put into notes and it will say who does what. That's all fantastic. But you take that recording, you put it into AI, another one, and you say, I want to schedule all sorts of different, I want to do emails. And there's 7 people on here. I want to send an email about this, about different things there. Based on your conversation, it will actually proactively craft the email for you, for each individual person based on the conversation that you just had. So if you have a Zoom call with 9 people and different things are said, it will say, well, when I had a conversation with Karen, this is the conversation that came out. So you want to follow up the email about this with Karen. You also tasked Catherine to do something that had to do with this. So this can work with internal calls also. So now all of a sudden, everybody's got the task. It's done automatically. But here's the beauty, Steve. If you go into agentic AI, you can say in advance, after this call, and you put it in there, just put in my thoughts and put in your thoughts with all of the email on each of the individual things that were discussed by person. And put in a deadline and a date and a deliverable for each one, and it will work backwards again doing that. Now, a lot of it is really understanding your business and really understanding what your deadlines are. So this is a little sophisticated, and it has to have enough of a background, because obviously if it doesn't know, it's going to guess or it's going to give you more generic things. So the more you use it, the more it will know, and the more specific it can be. So those emails that you just mentioned, scheduling emails or having it go out after a conversation that's contextual and really useful, really needs to be based on a lot of data and information that it's getting in.
Right, which is one of the reasons why you should be using paid services rather than the free services, because it will learn you.
Yeah, And the other thing is, these services talk to one another. I just mentioned Otter AI. That's going to talk to ChatGPT. That's going to talk to the agentic part. If you are using Canva for any of your graphics, that's going to talk to it too, right? If you're using beautiful AI to create your PowerPoints, your Claude or ChatGPT is going to be able to talk to that as well. And as you know, it also does code, right? So not only is it producing this, you can have some code as well that, I don't know code. I do know what I want. So I will ask it to create something. So now I'll either give it to my developers, or quite frankly, oftentimes we don't even need developers. It's pretty simple, and we can put code in. I have never coded in my life. I don't know the first thing about coding, but I do know what we need to do as we continue to improve our services, as we continue to scale Wowzitude, as we continue to bring in custom and curated complimentary information to each of our tours. And it knows each of the destinations that we're going to. It knows all of the different, for example, and something very simple, we always start with a slideshow. And I always want an authentic but upbeat music, but something that people know about so that it gets people very excited. I don't know. If we're in Ljubljana, Slovenia, what would I know? So in 2 seconds, it gives me exactly what I want. We just went to Mexico City, came up with La Bamba. Now that's something I would come up with, but it would take me a while. Here it happens in seconds. So you can really, really just use it to augment any of the things that you're doing as well.
Okay, so I gotta back you up sort of here a little bit. You talk about agentic. Is that a platform? Is that a tool? What is that?
No, it's actually kind of it's like a movement. It's like using it's the next generation, or the next way that we use AI. AI, we tell it what we want, we tell it what to do. When it's agentic, the agent will tell us proactively what to do. It will schedule our emails in advance. Would you like to schedule this on Monday mornings? I see that you're always sending things out. We do communications we have 300 partners at Wowzitude. So we try to do monthly communications the first Tuesday of every month. Well, now I don't have to sit there and say, well, the first Tuesday of every month, we have to schedule something. No, it knows, and it says, all right, I got this. I'm scheduling this for the first Tuesday of every month, unless you tell me differently. I'm going to have you don't have to be in the office. You don't have to be anywhere. At 10 o'clock, all of this is going out, and I'm going to refine it. And by the way, Susan, if something happens in between when you wrote that communication and something has happened in between, I'm going to edit it proactively. I'll let you see it. It'll be in your drafts. Nothing going out without you seeing it. Don't worry. I'll put it in a draft file, which is where it lives. And then once you say, yep, that's a great thing, I didn't even think about that, I'll make sure it goes out. So I'll alert you. So I will tell you when it is. I mean, we're all used to alerts now, right? We've had Google alerts for years now. I know I always get alerted by Google Flights if my flight has gone down, something that I'm watching. We all do that. Well, now, guess what? AI is alerting us to something new that we need to know about, contextually about something we're writing about, or something that they say, you know what, you were going to send this out, but there's so much happening, right? There's so much happening in our lives and in the government and everything going on, that there's some news and it's going to affect what you are communicating out. So proactively, I'm not saying, oh, by the way, did anything happen while I was gone? It's looking for me. It understands. How amazing is that? And this is not Buck Rogers. This is happening now.
So, we don't really have time to do this now. So I'm going to spend a little time with you offline. I want to talk about how the mechanics of how this works. Are you using it for things like accounting, and bookkeeping and that kind of thing? And how does that?
Absolutely. So this year, when we did the Wowzitude's taxes, and I have a bookkeeper, I have an accountant. So what I was able to do was just tell either ChatGPT or Claude, again, depending upon the day, exactly what I wanted. I gave them some information. All our all our invoicing, basically everything. And I said, you know what, can you please divvy this up and divide this up in table form, and tell me where we're spending the most money, tell me the best return on investment, tell me where we can save some money. Can you please track my subscriptions? We're a SaaS model as well at Wowzitude, so can you please take a look at this and see where we're getting all the value, see maybe there's something that I may have missed, maybe even a special where I could save money on some of the subscriptions. Can you please tell me all of that and break it down into different areas? And in a couple of minutes, maybe 5, I got everything I needed. Well, I will say that I got big snaps from my accountant this year. They never saw anything like this. They were like, well, how many hours did you spend just categorizing? And by the way, once you get that information, I'm so glad you asked about accounting. Once you got it, you can slice and dice it so many ways and get so many insights into your business. It's just a matter of asking it, and you get that in a matter of seconds. So again, yes, could a professional do this? They can, but it's going to take time and effort and money. And you can do this in every service area of your company. I mentioned about legal documents as well. We shoot out NDAs like this now and all sorts of things. I mean, again, I always caution and say, don't try this at home. Don't do this as a substitute, but this will get you 90% of the way there. So when you do go to the professionals, they're basically really reviewing it and editing it as opposed to doing it for the first time. It, again, has been amazing for my organization. I know we're right getting into tax season now. It's doing everything. So so my accounting team is quite happy with that. But really, it's everything. It's content. It's I have it looking, back to our ideas, mine in the shower. If I have an idea, I don't just stop it at that. I'll give you a perfect example. At CES, I was walking around. As we had our conversation there, the last day, I said, I'm going to be a little bit of a tourist, and I'm going to go to the really big hall with all the whiz bang stuff in the convention center. And we use gimbals, which is stabilizers in order to stream our tours. So I walked into that room and I said, oh, look at all these stabilizers. Isn't this interesting? And then I just asked ChatGPT, of all the stabilizers for what we do at Wowzitude, what do you think are the best ones, and rate them and tell me why. Tell me why, both in terms of pricing, et cetera, et cetera. So now with our 160 guides that we have, guess what? I have a communication right from CES that gives them an evaluation based on budget on their equipment. Can you imagine on their equipment? Now, do I know about this? Can you imagine if I had to do all that research? I mean, this is every tool known to man, and it knows the application of my business. And in just a matter of minutes, I mean, the inspiration was CES, walking around there. The application was, this could save a pain point for my guides because it can save them money. It can give them best quality. And, everybody, otherwise you go to Amazon, you're comparing things, it takes forever. And this is just fantastic. And the thank yous that I got from guides all around the world, they're in all different countries. Oh, and it tells you where you can buy it with a link to the lowest amount by country. So I knew to tell my Hungarian guide where to buy it there. This was crazy, I tell you. So every day I find new applications for this.
That's cool. So so you basically, I guess one of the things I wonder about is you're talking to it so much, and so it's spitting back information to you. How do you keep from being overwhelmed with the amount of information or task or ideas that come back to you?
Well, it's what I said in the beginning. It's a conversation. If you just tell it what to do, it's funny. I have this conversation with my husband all the time because he uses Copilot, and he's like, yeah, I'm not getting it out of it. What you get out of it? I'm like, because you're not chatty like me. It helps to talk. So I'm having a full conversation. What I find so many people do is they'll put in information, they'll type it in, and they wait to get it back, and they get a ton of information. And some of it is relevant, much of it isn't. And then they say, ugh, this thing doesn't work. And sometimes there are hallucinations, things that aren't right, much less so now than in the beginning. But the thing is, the more you talk to it and have a conversation as it is a person, by the way, when I say conversation, there's no holds barred. When I'm speaking to it, I'm like, this ridiculous person said this, and I can't believe he said, I mean, I go into a whole thing. So it gets my tone as well. And it helps me loosen up and helps me think about things. Also, here's a really important thing that I would suggest everyone on every conversation to do, which is there anything more you need to know? What else can I tell you that can help you figure this whole thing out? So when you do that, it will answer back saying, well, I was clear about this, but when you went off on the rails about this, I got a little lost. So that, when you get too much information, it's usually because it hasn't gotten the context or the right information. And then you sit there going, well, that's not exactly what I wanted. So you go back and forth. Generally, it takes me, I would say, between 6 to 9 times before I get exactly what I want. So it is, it's not zoom, zoom, zoom all the time, but it's very accurate. And the proof is in the pudding. I get the responses that I need and that I want. And the response rate is so much higher, especially with email, when I'm using this than when I'm not using it, because I'm far more accurate with my ask and the way it's phrased. And it because it knows everything in the universe, it knows how to ask in order to get the information I need.
Okay, so this is really interesting because most people would argue that things like an ask or sort of the pitch, you shouldn't leave up to AI because it's going to sound like AI and it's going to sound like everybody else. Help me out with this.
Oh, that's such a great question, Steve. Yes, we do not want to sound like a robot. Agreed. As you can hear just from this conversation, and by the way, this is how I speak to ChatGPT.
Yep.
I have a personality. You have a personality. You want it to come across. So you tell it, I want to have my personality come across. There's 3 ways to do that. Number 1, you can give it your own writing sample so it understands and learns what your writing is. And the more you can give it, the more it knows. The second thing is you just tell it, say, listen, not for nothing. And I don't want you to take offense, but I don't want you to sound like AI. I want you to sound like me. You hear how I'm talking. You hear how we're speaking. Yes, it needs to be a little more professional than this. We're a little casual now, but this is how I would like the tone to be. And that's an important thing. Talk about tone. Don't just put it in there, because otherwise, and for God's sake, if anything, and chat does this a lot, starts with, I hope this email finds you well, change the beginning, because that is the telltale sign that somebody's sending it from AI, and you don't want it to sound like that. So it can be very customized. It can be done very quickly. It can be, I tell it, this is, I met Steve and we had a great conversation there. I'd like the tone to be warm yet professional. So there are a lot of, by the way, if you ask AI, which I do, for a whole set of tones, for example, I'd like tones to be different. Guess what? It's going to give you a whole list, and then you can pick and choose depending upon who the email is going to, who the conversation and the communication is going to, and what your level of familiarity is. So you want that to be reflected as you would, but you don't have to sit there and labor and reword and copycraft and wordsmith everything. You can, boom, get it out and get it out quickly.
Okay, so we're about out of time. I've got 2 questions for you. The first is, do you have to say please and thank you?
Yes. Yes, you do. And you do it for a couple of reasons. First of all, we're nice people. And I've been stressing that you need to really engage and have a conversation with these tools. And that's what they are. They're tools. But, they will respond to that. I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's a little creepy, but, whatever the reason, they like encouragement. And when you give encouragement, more than even please and thank you, I'll go and say, wow, that was really my signature wowza. that was really an incredible thing. You really nailed it this time. And they're like, oh, well, thank you. Wow, that's amazing. And then miracle of miracles, I find that the next things that they do are even better. So I'm putting this together. So I go beyond the please and thank you. I treat it as if it is truly, a helper bee, an agent that's near me, and give it the respect that it so richly deserves.
Right. And the last thing is, would you like to do a pitch for your company?
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, Steve. Yes, that would be lovely. So we do, as I mentioned, live stream tours, and it is both for the lifelong learner. We're now with 300 partners. We work with organizations. We don't work with individuals directly. It's all B2B2C. And so the organizations we work with is everyone from senior living. So we are actually now, I think, in 800 senior living communities, and we work very nicely with groups such as Life Loop and So Life and Uniguest. And so we work with our partners there. But we also work, in addition to lifelong learners, with older adults such as myself who are evaluating their next trip. So we're working with museums and alumni groups and all sorts of groups that are inspiring people to travel in person. So it really has a dual use. Those that are just always want to be connected and talking to the guides because they're all moderated. And we have, by the way, we use AI for that too. We have, usually I mentioned 7,000 people on a tour. Well, guess what? We get a lot of questions. So we stack rank them. And what we did is use a custom GPT. We put it together for 4 years of experience of the type of questions we get. And we use 19 different formats. So we have the very best questions come in. And I tell every participant on it, I say, listen, ask us really insightful questions because the best ones go to the top. And that's exactly what happens. It's fed to the moderator then, live moderator, oftentimes me. And then that moderator is asking the guide at the appropriate time. And the guide turns the camera around and says, well, Steve, that's a great question. Let me answer that to you. So it's still very personalized, and we're using AI to do that personalization as well. So it's a very interactive experience. It really is. We say the wow moment is the now moment. We do have rewatches too. But I appreciate that because we really, really love, we now go out to 1.2 million in 4 years. But we were able to do that through our incredible partners. So we are thrilled about that. And every time we can use AI with groups like ELIQ and others, we do what we can. And we're constantly learning. It is just exciting. And I'll do one last plug because lifelong learners are my favorite things. So if you can talk and you can imagine, you can do AI. Don't think that this technology, even though we're at Tech Tuesday here, don't think that this technology is quote unquote for the young. It is for everyone. I'm in my 60s. I'm an entrepreneur in my 60s. Our audience is in 50s and better. And this all works for all of us. It really is life-changing. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need technology. You just need to know how to apply some of the goodness that's out there.
Susan, thank you very much. This has been a great, great conversation. You've inspired me to go do some more digging with AI. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Steve, you're a pleasure anytime. And let's travel the world together.
Let's do.